If you missed it live, catch the podcast on kaya959.co.za.
It's Mishaya Chettiar who's joining us this evening, Executive Head at Everything.Insure. Such a pleasure to have you with us and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. You have a very interesting title and, of course, a very interesting company that you work for. I understand it's been a journey, though, since you've been there. But so far, you've been at Everything.Insure for the last 6 years and you've managed the ebbs and the flows of the role, function, and I guess objective of the business. But for those who aren't familiar with Everything.Insure, paint a picture to add context and clarity as to what it is you do and how you do it effectively.
Okay, well, Everything.Insure is a startup that started 6 years ago, and as the insurtech industry started taking off, we wanted to change the insurance space. So I'm not an insurance person, but I like digitalizing and changing staid industries, which the insurance industry surely is. Yeah. And so what we built is a digital insurance marketplace. So we are not the insurer, we are the marketplace. So we curate the insurance industry and we find the best insurers or providers for all types of insurance, and we create a digital experience where consumers can go on, answer a simple flow of questions, get multiple quotes from the top insurers, and then compare them and actually buy online. So it's not just quotes, you can buy online, and then once you buy, you can have all your insurance products in one portal where you can edit, pause, cancel, claim. So kind of like internet banking, but for insurance.
Wow. That sounds phenomenal. I guess for many, once you present this as a solution, that's when you realize, I didn't know that was a problem, but it's definitely something that we need. And I guess this speaks to, the changes in the market that we've witnessed, especially when it comes to insurance, because for many, it's a complex world to understand, right? So how have you managed that particular journey in terms of not only the digital integration, but, attaining the trust, the partnership and support of the many peers and I guess insurance providers that you work with?
So I think a lot of the insurance industry has known that they need to become digital and not had the ability to become digital. And like you say, insurance is a very complicated space, and it's how I kind of feel about tax. That's how I used to feel about insurance.
True.
Somebody else can handle it. I don't really understand it. I don't want to understand it. But I think consumers, because we're trying to save money and all sorts of things, we need to understand what we're buying, understand whether we've got the best product. So I think the reason that insurance is typically, you mentioned it earlier, a grudge purchase is because we don't understand what we've bought. And then when we want to claim and we find out we're not covered for this or that, we get irritated. We feel like we've wasted our money paying for all these years.
True.
So our goal is to take these complex products, make them simpler for consumers to understand so that they understand what they're buying. And then one of the other big things about Everything.Insure is it was one of the first to get a license with the FSCA for digital advice. So it is a digital broker as well as a marketplace. So we don't just give you the quotes. All along the way, we spend a lot of time giving advice. So as you answer a question, explaining the question, giving you advice like a broker would. And it's fully digital, but there's a whole human team on the other end where at any point consumers can ask questions and get advice, can get the broker to take over for them. So it's the best of both worlds. And we've tried to marry those because I think a lot of insurtechs are all digital. And so there's a generation that wants that. And then there's a generation that wants the broker. And so we are serving both and trying to bring you that hybrid of, digital and self-service when you need it, and then human support when you want it as well.
Exactly. I find this so intriguing, right? Because we always talk about how we can digitize or digitalize many industries and sectors, and to see how you've done it so effectively and efficiently at Everything.Insure is really an eye-opener to understand the opportunities that exist. And this potentially speaks to the opportunities that exist in a market like South Africa. And I ask this specifically hoping that you tap into your background as a consultant, having worked for global companies and international agencies. If you could perhaps juxtaposition the opportunities that exist within the South African market, despite the difficult climate we think that we're in.
Yeah, I think that South Africa is just ripe with opportunity. As you mentioned, I think I started at a consulting company, and like you said, I have, before joining Everything.Insure, worked with many clients, mainly in financial services, but retail, financial services, and all of those industries were bringing in consultants like us. How do we reach a market that has access to a smartphone as much as you wouldn't expect it? Most South Africans have access to a phone and are able to do things digitally, and they want to do things digitally. 20 years ago or 30 years ago when internet banking kicked in, we didn't all people knew was standing in a queue at a bank, and now I couldn't even think about. I don't know the last time I went into a bank. Right, I've got a better way to spend my time.
Yeah.
Same with insurance. I don't want to sit on the phone with some call center agent when I'm buying a new car, waiting to get a quote. I'm not really sure if that's the best price in the market, or filling in forms when I want to insure my business. Why can't I do it digitally, answer a couple of things on my phone as I'm buying the car, have it covered before I leave?
Right? That is so intriguing, and I think so important for us to understand that the level of efficiency that you've brought about does make it so much easier. If you've just joined us, we are in conversation with Mishaya Chettiar, who is the executive head at Everything.Insure, an insure tech startup working to revolutionize the insurance industry and, of course, demystify insurance for many South African consumers. And as you've heard Mishaya explain, it's given us the opportunity to literally have the option of exploring various insurance quotes, seeking that coverage, and, of course, the financial advice and support that comes with it, all at the fingertips and really accessibility of our phones. I'm also intrigued, as you've witnessed not only and participated in the change of how consumers access insurance, you obviously have tapped into the change in skills requirement. No longer is it just an insurance broker and someone on the other end of a call center line to give you a breakdown of what you require. And I can imagine at Everything.Insure, a lot of the skills that you require are more from a technical and perhaps digital basis. Help us understand, how this is opening up new opportunities to participants in the insurance space.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you had asked any one of our team if they'd be working in the insurance industry, they would have never thought so. We've obviously got insurance people, brokers, underwriters, etc., but then we've got developers, we've got AI and machine learning experts, we've got business analysts, we've got marketing and creative people, we've got English plain language experts.
Whoa, what does that mean?
Because we are trying to make insurance demystified, the word you used, and make you and I as normal consumers understand it. We will sit with the insurance people. What do I need to answer to insure my business? And they'll tell me all of these questions, and they'd give me the advice, and I'd go, okay, what does that mean? Explain it to me so that I understand it. And so we'll take technical policy wording and we will get the plain language experts to go and rewrite that in plain language so that when you read it, you understand it.
Right.
When I read it, I understand it. So we spend a lot of time. So it's all those, you studied English at school, you'd never think you'd be working for an insurance company, or you were a developer or testers, all sorts of things. So we've definitely got insurance people, but the large majority of our team are actually not insurance people.
Wow. And how have you, I guess, witnessed this shift when you take a look at the talent pool in South Africa? It's often said, and many business leaders bemoan the fact that we don't have enough talent from a digital and tech point of view. And I'm keen to understand if that's something you've witnessed, or have you had to tap into, those in the diaspora or international talent in order to support your business?
So, I mean, we've definitely struggled to find digital talent, but we haven't gone international. There is talent in South Africa. I think the problem is that the international markets are tapping into the South African market.
I see.
And so finding affordable talent in the South African market is difficult because we've got the hardest working people in South Africa, I can tell you that. And so the US and the UK and lots of Europe want people from South Africa. They want developers. And I think COVID made it possible with remote working for developers to live in Cape Town, live in Joburg, and work for an American company like Amazon or whatever. So we have definitely, that's probably been one of our biggest challenges, is finding the right tech talent. And so that's an ongoing journey for us, but the ones we have found are amazing.
100%. And I guess speaks to new opportunities that, our listeners can also tap into, to understand how they can make that pivot into a new space. I use the word pivot because it is part of this profile of this interview, pivot point. And I guess we always reflect on the pandemic because that's where this theme of pivoting was so prevalent. And I'm keen to understand if the pandemic has left any legacy, not only on your business, on your leadership style, on how you execute operational activities, but as an overview. What is it that the pandemic brought about that made you pivot and think differently in your approach to business or leadership or other aspects of the operation you take care of?
I think if I think back to my early career, you thought very traditionally. If I remember, I interviewed for a job straight out of varsity that was in Cape Town, and it required me to move to Cape Town, and so I didn't take it, and I ended up working here. Okay. And if I look at our team now, we have got UI, UX designers and all sorts of things that are all in Cape Town. And then we've got, our head business analyst lives in Durban. One of our developers lives in Durban. A lot of our team are in Joburg. So they're all over the country and we can work seamlessly. So that pivot of not necessarily remote working as in work from home, but remote working, I can hire somebody from any province, anywhere, and we can work seamlessly as if we were sitting in the same office. That has been a massive change for the way that I've worked in the past versus now.
Definitely.
And also obviously the technologies like Teams and Zoom enable all of that stuff, which is great.
Exactly. As long as the productivity outcomes are met.
There, exactly.
Precisely. We are in conversation with Mishaya Chettiar, who is the executive head at Everything.Insure, and we've been reflecting not only on the adoption of technology within this space, but of course taking a look at opportunities that do exist for many more South Africans to enter the insurance space, not only as a consumer by having access to affordable information that is comparative, but also seeking the right financial assistance on board as you journey about. There's an interesting theme that I'd like to shift this conversation to, Mishaya, if you'll allow me. And I typically don't like doing it, but I went onto the website earlier compiling research. I recall I last had a conversation with one of the founders of the business, Viz Governor, in August, taking a look at how the business is helping to break opportunities for new entrants in the industry. And I looked at the picture and I was like, you're the only female. I celebrate that because, of course, it means that as you chart the path forward, there's many more who will come up behind you. But typically when many outsiders look in and you reflect on, oh, you're the only female, oh, you're a female of color, there's often this expectation that, goodness, it must be hard. It must be tough. What are you doing as a female leader? But at the end of the day, a leader is a leader. But I'm keen to hear your reflections on the gender dynamics. Does it even play a role? And what you've learned even from observing other opportunities, businesses, where leadership is recognized regardless of gender, race, or background.
Yeah, I think I feel very fortunate to not have experienced any disadvantage being a female. I think our picture definitely needs to be updated. We've got a few more females in the team now. I think we've hired about 3 or 4 more.
Congrats.
But I think insurance as an industry we know is typically male dominated in the more higher leadership spaces, but that's definitely changing, and I think that's just historic. It's not a reflection of the fact that they don't want any females in there or that it's difficult for females to be in the insurance industry. I think every meeting I've gone into with the heads of insurance companies and all sorts of things, there's no gender doesn't seem to play a role. It's not a factor for anybody, which is great. Definitely. So it's definitely empowering, and I think it's great to see. We've done a couple of tech interviews recently for developers, and it's great to see there's more and more female developers. I think if I think back to when I was at varsity, I studied information systems, and there were very few females in that kind of space like you would generally find in engineering, etc. And that's slowly starting to change, which is amazing. So I think it's going to be less and less of a factor soon.
Exactly. And I find that refreshing because that is the point. You're there on merit, and we're opening up the industry to have more women participate, and we walk that journey alongside men who, are peers and partners within these particular roles that we serve. Coming back, though, to the interesting themes, and maybe to personalize it when it comes to, what you see at Everything.Insure, are there particular themes and trends that do stand out around insurance purchases, insurance inquiries, maybe from a gender dynamic, generational dynamic? Are baby boomers just as keen to log online as a Gen Z and millennial to seek insurance comparisons and quotes?
So we found it very interesting to see that there are definitely some baby boomers. I don't know. I think our oldest person that we've had on the platform is 70.
Wow.
And
okay.
He went on, he quoted on his own insurance, he bought his insurance, he's put in a claim, he's requested emergency service, he cancelled his car, he added a new car at the dealership, and that's amazing. And hasn't needed any help. And we've obviously got our Gen Zs that it's easy, and that's all. They don't want to talk to somebody. I had a conversation with one of the heads of a department at Hollard, and she said, I spoke to my daughter, and she said, I need to get insurance on my car. Is there no way that I don't have to talk to a person? So that's your Gen Zs. They just don't want to talk to a person. And your millennials are, I think, somewhere in between. And so if I had to look at the demographic of all of our policies and people who are using Everything.Insure, I would say they are definitely more in the millennial sort of 30 to 45, 50 space, but we have got outliers on either end.
I find that very refreshing because we often hear about those generational mixes and the changes in themes and the likes that do come forward. I'm keen to talk business insurance and perhaps what the appetite has been there. We always are well aware of the fact that SMMEs are significant contributors to economic growth and employment in South Africa. What is the trend and theme been, for South African small business owners to, actively seek business insurance in its various capacities, especially post the pandemic? And I'm also intrigued, top of mind, because we tend to interview a lot of township-based entrepreneurs who might not understand the value, of insurance for their stock, key man policies and the likes. How's that been going? Is there a heightened level of, education that still needs to take place in those markets?
I think there's definitely a heightened level of education required, especially in the SMME market, because like you said, insurance is this grudge purchase, and because you're not getting anything tangible back, you almost only realize you need it when you need it.
Yep.
And so the pandemic raised the awareness of the need for insurance, but also I think in some spaces like the tourism industry,
Yes.
people felt like, I'm not sure whether insurance was worth it. But I think insurance got a lot of bad press in that time.
True.
But I think things like COVID showed you the importance of business interruption insurance and income protection and all of that sort of stuff. So we spent quite a lot of time this year specifically on building commercial insurance online, because if you had to go and insure your business right now, it's lots of questions,
Yep.
lots of paperwork. It's probably going to take you about a week to get a quote back, all of that sort of stuff, surveys, etc. And so we've tried not to just take the application form and make it digital. What we did was, where's the pain points, both for the insurer and for the consumer? How can we change it? And of all of these questions that are just here because we've been asking it for the last 100 years, what do you actually need to rate the risk profile? And what do you need to underwrite the risk profile? That's all we want to ask online.
Sure.
Anything else, we either don't ask at all or we ask post sign up. And so we spent a lot of time specifically on SMEs, and we developed a product where you can get a quote for your business if you have a turnover of under 20 million in 5 minutes. You can get fully insured in 5 minutes.
Sole proprietor or private company?
Doesn't matter.
Wow.
As long as your turnover is under 20 million, we give you the advice. So you answer 3 questions, and then we recommend you need these classes of insurance at these limits. You can play around with the limits. You can tailor it to your specific need, and you can compare the various insurers, and you can buy straight away online.
Wow.
If you're a bigger insurer, then we've got full commercial online as well, and we've spent a lot of time trying to make that user-friendly so that usually you need a broker to do it, so that a consumer can answer those questions themselves, whether you've got 5 different branches with different needs at each one, you'd be able to do it yourself online, understanding what you're actually insuring.
And regardless of the sector that you might be in.
Regardless of the sector that you're in.
Wow. This is so important and I think critical, because we tend to engage with a lot of entrepreneurs who, as you say, you only realize you need insurance when you need it. And these are the lessons in terms of compliance and financial discipline and understanding that do need to be shared. And maybe keeping with the theme of financial discipline, you probably heard our first hour of the show. Everything was about interest rates. So glad that the repo rate has remained unchanged. But I can imagine that not only has it impacted consumers' affordability, but even some of the individuals who check for quotes on your platform and use your platform to engage, make adjustments, rework payment conditions, change the type of cover that they have. What have you witnessed in the last year in terms of consumer affordability and their choices influencing insurance?
Yeah, so I think lots of consumers are either cancelling their insurance. It's a nice to have, which is very sad. I think there was a scary stat. I think 70% of the cars on the South African road are uninsured.
Sure.
And or they're just looking for the cheapest. And I think one of the things that Everything.Insure that we're trying to do is emphasize the value of understanding the multiple aspects when buying insurance. It's not just price. So
Yes.
I was saying to somebody the other day, when I go and buy clothing or buy a car, that certain brands or certain products mean something. It's not just price. So as much as this clothing brand may be cheaper, I know that it comes at these costs, or this car brand may be cheaper, it comes at these costs. With insurance, we don't know that. We just look at price, and we don't realize that not all insurance is equal, not all products are equal, not all insurers are equal.
Sure.
And so we try to explain and show and have a wide variety of prices, products. So we highlight what's covered, what's not covered to you, so that you can see this is cheaper, but it doesn't have this cover. It's got a slightly different cover. Or
You bring out the detail that's typically in the small print.
hidden. And we have an insurer rating model that tells you each insurer, this is their claims paying history, this is their balance sheet, so their likelihood to go under, as we saw with some of the insurers recently.
Yes.
All sorts of factors, their customer satisfaction rating, their industry awards, all of that stuff, and we give you an insurer rating. So you can pick your product based on price, based on the actual quality of the product, what's covered, what's not covered, and based on the insurer. So you're making an informed decision. But when price is tough, you obviously want to know that you have the best in the market. But I think whenever we speak to people, the thought of having to sit on the phone for an hour, I'd rather just cancel it or stick with the price. Whereas what we've tried to do is we bring everything into one platform so that you quote once, you get 13 quotes for something like personal insurance from the top insurers, and then you bind and you never have to do it again, because if one of the insurers annoys you and you hated their experience, you just switch without having to answer the questions again, without having to sit on the phone, without having to fill in paperwork. So you don't have to go through the experience again. So our line is, it's your only insurance platform, and our goal is to continuously add more and more products to the platform so that you don't have to go anywhere. Any insurance you're looking for, you go to Everything.Insure.
100%. Sure. This has been a really enlightening conversation. And I think a lot of us are walking away with a greater understanding, not only of the company, not only of the industry trends, but of course, even your journey as a leader within the institution. But to close off with, I am hoping to leave it up on, a positive outlook. What's next, not only for the business, what's next for yourself. And I guess for individuals who are either participants of the insurance industry or consumers and clients of it, what else we should be mindful of in terms of journeying forward within the economy regarding insurance in the country?
I think it's really important to be empowered as a consumer. Whatever you're spending your money on, you should be empowered. You should understand what you're buying, and you should make sure that what you're buying meets your needs. And you should be able to have flexibility and be able to tailor what you're buying for your needs. So insurance is no different. If I'm looking for a car that is a SUV that has this type of engine, etc., you can tell I've got nothing about cars. I should be able to find it at this color. I should have the same flexibility in insurance. So I think consumers should look to find a place where they are empowered and where they know where their money is going and they understand what they're buying.
100%. Empowered, access to knowledge, and of course making sure that you've got clarity on where you're allocating your funding. Such a pleasure speaking to you, Mishaya. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. It was so nice to be here.
Likewise. Good to have you with us. That was Mishaya Chettiar, who's the executive head at Everything.Insure, the insurance tech startup, which is literally revolutionizing access not only to different insurance quotes, but also the adequate financial services and, I guess, advice and support that comes with it.
If you missed it live, catch the podcast on kaya959.co.za.